Welcome to Authors Revealed. I'm Becky Anderson. I'm so excited. One of my favorite Chicagoland young adult authors is here. It's Demitria Lunetta. And the conclusion of her duology, it's In the End. You've got to read this one. Well, Demitria, welcome back to Anderson's. I can't tell you what a thrill it is to have you back.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know we just had the launch event for her, and I love this. Can I tell you, I love it. This is a 2-book series. Can I tell you how fabulous it is? So a duology,
yes.
But you know, the new book is out in the end. It's been out about 2 weeks in the world on bookstores and shelves everywhere. So I want to know, what are all your fans of In the After, the first book in this duology? What are you hearing from them?
I hear a lot from teens on Twitter mostly, it seems, and a little bit on Facebook, not so much Facebook, but I mean, they seem to like it, and yeah, I mean, I've just been hearing really good things. And
that's fantastic. Well, you should, because I want to tell you, the first book, it was like being on a roller coaster ride. It was nonstop, and that means nonstop reading until you reach the end. So it was so incredibly fabulous. So, you know, publishing, now that their second book is out, how was the journey for you, or the publishing process, or going through everything you do from what you write to have it being published and being out there in the world? How was it this time compared to that first time?
It was definitely different. The first time, so when you write your first book and you want it to get published, you have all the time in the world because you don't have an agent, you don't have deadlines, you don't have a publisher. So you just take as much time as you want and get it ready and then send it out into the world. And then for the second book, you have an agent and deadlines and a publisher. So I had a very short amount of time to write the second book. I had 2.5 months actually. And I had more time to edit it, which was awesome because definitely needed some editing. But yeah, I just sat down and just devoted all of my time to writing it, and it took about 2.5 months.
So you felt like there was more of a process, that you knew what was coming, and it was easier in some ways.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Also, I didn't write an outline for the first book, but my editor suggested that since I had such a short deadline to write the second book, because you know they like to have them out a year after each other, she suggested I write a detailed outline, and that really helped figure out all the plot points and everything.
Well, that's one of my questions for them, but I'll ask you now. You know, I always ask authors whether they sit down to outline, because you know, if you didn't on the first book, so that means what you were writing was surprising you as much as it does us when we read it. So even though you wrote an outline for In the End, the second book, there were still those elements that were a surprise to you as you're going along.
I feel I've never written an outline before that, and I kind of like that surprise where you get to know the characters or you get to know the plot, and it's not really hammered down. I feel like with an outline, it's sort of more, you have to conform to that, but definitely having done it, it helped keep me on task, I suppose. Instead of meandering and then cutting things out, and you know, the whole process, it definitely made me focus on what is happening and what needs to get done in the book. So I feel like a lot of people, an outline is very helpful. For me, I prefer not to write with one, but it can, if you have a deadline or you need to get something done, it can be very helpful.
That's a good point. So, like I said before, 2 books, a duology. You know, so much of young adult literature that's coming out, doesn't matter what genre it's written in, they're trilogies. And I'm going to tell you honestly, sometimes I get a little fatigued with that. And sometimes when in a trilogy, you know, that second book seems sort of like the weakest of the 3, that weak link, that bridge between books 1 and 3. How come 2 books? And was that something, it just ended up being that way? Or did you set out to write just 2 books?
So I actually set out to write a standalone.
Oh, okay.
And back in 2011, I believe it was, all the publishers just wanted dystopian, dystopian, dystopian. So when I sold my book to Harper Teen, they actually wanted it to be a trilogy. So I had this book that I'd written as a standalone, and now they were like, well, make it a trilogy. It's like, okay, do you want summaries or anything? They're like, no, it'll be fine. So when the process came around of actually, you know, outlining what was going to be in those books, I didn't feel there was enough to go into 3 books. I didn't want the second book to just be filler, to just feel like it was a spacer between, you know, the beginning and the end. So talked to my editor, and we decided to make it 2 books.
Yeah. Well, thank you. As I said before. But did you, when you started to write this story, and we'll talk about where the inspiration or that seed started to grow for In the After, but did you set out to write for a young adult audience, or it was just a story that you wanted to tell?
That's kind of a hard one because I knew I wanted the character to be a teenager. It's post-apocalyptic, and in my mind, I feel like teenagers would deal better with the end of the world, any kind of end of the world scenario. Like for myself, just having the electricity not work, having my computer not work, having my cell phone not work, you know, I feel like a lot of older people would not be able to adapt as well. So I felt like someone who was younger but old enough to take care of themselves was the way to go. So I knew it was going to be a teen, but it's kind of strange when you write YA and people are like, why do you write YA? Sometimes it just, the character comes to you and that's what you write. Okay. I don't think it was I'm going to write a YA book.
Right, right. And you know, that's interesting. Most YA authors answer that way. So
yeah.
It's just, it's almost like the characters and what the story ends up being ends up putting it into that genre. Even though there's a huge crossover adult readers reading this.
Yeah,
this
I definitely love to read YA almost exclusively.
So do I. So where did the seed, that little spark, start to grow for the first book in the after? What had you heard or seen or just wanted to create that started this story?
I've always loved scary movies, scary books, anything that has zombies, aliens, vampires, the scary vampires though, not the glowing, seductive vampires. Yes, right. Yeah, I like the scary ones.
Me too.
So I knew that in my post-apocalyptic world I wanted it to be a creature-based world, but I also wanted to make my creatures a little different. So in those scary stories, vampires especially, but even zombie stuff, mostly daylight is the safe time when characters go out and they can scavenge. And I wanted to take that safety of light away from my main character, so that it was really, she had to keep to the dark and to the shadows. Right. So I made the creatures active during the day. So to take away that safety of the daylight. Sure. And in just thinking about, well, why would they be more active during the day? I thought, well, let's make their eyesight really poor so they can see better during the day and give them this incredible hearing. Mm-hmm. So not only can my character not really go out during the day, she has to remain completely silent. So she can't talk or interact with people or make any noise, or it brings these creatures to her. So it was more of just a progression of how to create these creatures that haven't really been seen before, and then how do they actually react or interact in this world? Why are they the way they are?
And I love the way you flip the world like that. I thought that was so fantastic. So you know what, to me, and you know, post-apocalyptic, you know, we're talking those kind of novels, but this to me was pretty true science fiction. You know,
I
love science fiction, and I think we're hearing more requests that we're hearing readers want to have some really good science fiction. And do you feel like sometimes that books like yours could be buttonholed into a certain genre instead of just looking at this as great post-apocalyptic sort of, you know, science fiction? Yeah.
I think it, especially like I said, when I sold my book in 2011, everything was dystopian, and publishers wanted only dystopian. So it can be, you know, whatever the buzzword is at the time. But definitely I see, when I was writing my book, I saw it as sci-fi and post-apocalyptic. And then, you know, people told me it was dystopian. So it was dystopian.
But I never pictured it at this. But even though, because when it first came out and I first heard about it from my HarperCollins rep, she said this is dystopian, but it's not. It's not.
I mean, I feel like there are dystopian elements later on in the book for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first part of the book is very post-apocalyptic, stark sci-fi, and I mean, people can call it whatever they like. I would say sci-fi post-apocalyptic for sure, but.
Well, last year when you were a debut author, you came to our young adult conference last September, and you were on a panel with other authors. Some had written sci-fi. We call it a dystopian panel or otherworldly kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So how did you feel about being with those other authors for that first time, but also talking about YA and how we're looking at sci-fi, you know, post-apocalyptic, dystopian, whatever you want to call it. How did you feel after being on that panel?
I think it was a great experience. It was really amazing because there were so many different authors. I think there were about 10, and some were New York Times bestselling authors, and some were debut like me. So it was just amazing to really talk to so many other authors and listen to what they had to say about things, and it's really funny. Michael Grant, I think, was on that panel, and a couple of other people. So to listen to people who have been, you know, around for a while, and argue with people who are just debut authors and back and forth, and it was great. And it was great to meet all the librarians and teachers.
It was a great panel you guys had. So this book, you know, I saw this as a survivalist story. And you know, the main character, Amy, is just, I thought she's just a great, just incredible character. But also, you know, the horror of it, and that was really delicious. I really liked that part of it. But you know what, is it hard, because the first book in the after, and this book too, is just, it's like nonstop. It's heart pounding, you know. Is that hard to accomplish, you know, and to keep it going like that throughout a whole story?
I think for me, I usually focus on plot before I focus on anything else. So for me, it was more, it's harder to sort of get the character development in there and slow it down and make sure that it's not just things are happening all the time,
right,
sort of thing. So, I mean, I'm glad that you feel that way, and I'm glad that translates as go, go, go. But yeah, that part I feel isn't difficult for me. I know some authors have trouble with plotting, where my trouble is more my editor would say, "What is Amy feeling in this scene?" And I'm like, I don't really care. She's doing awesome things, but okay, we'll put in emotions, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. But Amy, you know, she's so brave. She's sort of that kick bug, sort of take charge. She's that leader type of character. But then there's Amber, a friend, who, you know, she's not a leader. She's a follower. She's one of those girls or people. There's so many people like that in the world who rather take the easy way, be the follower. You know, it's out of fear. It's out of wanting to survive in certain circumstances. That was sort of the yin and yang of this story, and it's so true. It doesn't matter what situation you may find where people are challenged. But I saw that rang so true to me, to have these two different sort of opposing girls.
I actually, Amber's one of my favorite characters to write, just because she is so different, and she's not the main character, so she doesn't have to, you know, be super kick-ass and in charge all the time. And she's just as much a survivor as, you know, Amy is, and it's kind of tragic the way that she does follow, and she doesn't really have her own, you know, I can do this. She has to find someone else to do it for her. But yeah, I definitely had fun writing Amber, just because a lot of people would be like Amber, and I feel like, I don't know, in that situation, you know, I want to think that I could take charge and be the Amy character, but there's only so many, you know, survivors in the world, and you have to do what you can.
Right. And then some people always want to play it safe. You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes they make the wrong decisions based on wanting to be safe or doing certain things. Baby, fantastic. And I saw Amy and Baby. This is a small child. I think she's 3 years old, and she finds her, and they're by themselves for quite a while. But they grow up together. You know, she has saved this girl, but they develop their own communication. I love that relationship. So I wanted to know, did you channel, of course, your 17-year-old or younger self, but also your very young self, or watch other young children to get Baby just right?
I think definitely when I was younger, I have a younger sister who's 3 years younger, so I did use a bit of that. Just growing up, my little sister and brother are twins, so I remember them being really young, and being sort of, you know, how Baby has like her moments of like, and sometimes younger kids say things and you're not quite sure why they're saying them, or they say things unexpectedly smart. And I just remember that from my younger sister. She would just say something like a little kid, but it would just be like a light bulb would go off, and amazing. But yeah, everyone loves Baby, which I'm very happy about.
Well, there's a lot that happens in this episode. we don't want any spoilers here. But you know, the aliens in the book, the they, you know, they like the best of Alien. You know, they're really scary. They're really scary. So I want to know, what ingredients did you take from all of those favorite creatures that, you know, that you've loved from books and movies and put into the they? You know?
Well, I like. So for zombie films, they always have either the really rambling, sort of falling apart zombies that are so slow and that you can kind of just walk away from. And then sometimes they have the really scary fast zombies, and I was always so frightened of those fast zombies. So I sort of wanted to take from zombie films elements of the fast and the slow. So when there's no one really around, they're kind of rambling around and not really doing anything, but as soon as they hear something, then they're really quick and really fast. Also, just even the Alien movies, just the tenseness of, you know, the scenes with Sigourney Weaver and the alien. And you know that the alien is in the room somewhere. It's going to pop out at her at any moment. So I definitely wanted to take that tenseness from all those creature films.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So, you know, the research, you had to have done some research, because I think in really good science fiction, there has to be some research. So, because even though it is science fiction and it's unbelievable, there still has to be some basis in the real world in order for you to take that leap of faith and believe that this could really happen. So, did you do any research on any of these things? On, you know, even with the, you know, the zombies who have been, the humans had been infected, you know, that it turned into, you know, the Flores, I think, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But what kind of research did you do to make this world building that you did?
So for the post-apocalyptic world, I definitely studied what would happen if there was no one around to maintain sidewalks or buildings or houses or anything like that, or cars even, and what it would sort of look like to give it sort of that authentic feel of a creepy post-apocalyptic landscape. For the creatures and for some other science stuff, I really wanted it to be anchored in reality, so I did a bit of research on that, but I didn't want it to be too technical or too much science in it. So I agree that when you have science fiction, it needs to be sort of anchored somewhere, and then you can go off on whatever, as long as you have that grain of this is what could actually happen, or this stems from something.
Yeah. And in this, the second book, you know, the conclusion here, there is an evil character. His name is Dr. Reynolds, and we don't want to say what he's. So he is very evil. So I want to know if there's anybody that you thought of when you were creating this character and the things that he's doing in this book.
I feel like the best villains are you can see that they're evil, but you can also kind of see where they're coming from. So more so with a few other characters who are evil or they're bad, but you can see why they're doing the things they're doing. So with Dr. Reynolds, I wanted to have a little bit of that, but mostly badness. So I feel like, I mean, not anyone in particular, but all the great, you know, film villains who you're like, oh, that person's so bad. But I do kind of understand why they're doing what they're doing. But you don't agree with them, or you don't agree with it at all.
Because they wouldn't be as evil if they didn't have that other side to them.
I think so too, yeah.
And the survivalists, you know, the techniques and stuff that's in this book. Did you talk to any survivalists, or those people who are crazy about thinking that the apocalypse is coming and they're getting ready for it? You know?
I didn't talk to any survivalists. I did talk to a few people. My husband was in the Army, so I talked to him about what they would do when they were deployed and different, you know, I don't know anything about weapons, so I had to ask him about guns and, you know, stuff like that, things I didn't know about. He's also from Wisconsin, so they go camping a lot. So it really helped, you know, learning about how people survive in the wild, even just camping, you know, what kind of food they eat and what they do. But I do watch a show, I think it's Doomsday Preppers or something, on people who people who are survivalists, and it's just like, wow, if that happened, whatever the scenario is, I would never survive, because they are set for whatever they think is going to happen. They are set completely, and I am not.
We need to find those people.
Yes, go and live with them.
Right. So this world you have built in these two books, and you know when you think of New Hope and Fort Black and what happens in this book, and building that world, did you create sort of I always think of, you know, you have this world, and whatever great science fiction writer or fantasy writer or whatever, they create this world, and it's sort of like a blueprint. It's an architectural drawing of what this world is. Did you sort of do that and sort of plan it out to see what this world is, you know, going to be?
Yeah, mentally, definitely. I know some people use Post-its and do all kinds of things. You know, visual people do that. I'm more just in my head. So definitely. So for New Hope, it's basically a college campus, and there's all these scientists and researchers and people who would be on a college campus, and it's basically thinking about what kind of world would come from very intellectual people. You know, what kind of society would they create? And then with Fort Black, it was almost the opposite. You know, what kind of society would people who are in prison create? Would people who, you know, are in jail or were stuck in that area, what would they create?
Right, yeah. So you studied or majored in human ecology when you were in school. So what did majoring in that and studying all those different things bring to your writing, but also to this duology that you've done?
So I studied environmental law.
Okay.
And I think that studying that kind of what people are doing to the environment, it definitely gets you thinking about the end of the world and how the world could end. I think that really, I mean, human ecology is just a catch-all phrase for just how humans interact with their environment. So it's pretty open-ended. So I think it definitely just in thinking about human impact and everything, set up for a post-apocalyptic novel, definitely.
Okay, okay. So was it hard to leave the characters when you finished the second book? And who did you miss the most?
It's a little difficult just because I was writing them for so long. But, you know, it's nice to move on to something else, too. It's always nice to start something new. I think I definitely miss writing Baby. She's one of my favorites to write. And Amy, of course, because she's so different than me. She's so awesome and kick-ass and a survivor. And it's really fun to think about how someone who is not like you at all would react or say or interact. So it's definitely very, very fun to write her.
You know, and the other thing I wanted to thank you about in this duology was there wasn't that typical, and it happens in quite a few YA books, is that love triangle thing. And I thank you for not putting that in there. Can I say that? But there is romance, and we don't want to get too much, and I think his name is Ken. Right?
Race?
Race.
Or,
yeah,
okay.
Right. I'm trying to think of, But thank you for not, I mean, it's sort of that, there's so much of that in so much YA literature. So it was nice not to have that because it's a distraction to, I think, what she is as a person, who Amy is.
There's not a lot of romance in the first book. It's very, very little. The situation doesn't really call for it. You know, she's trying to adapt. And I think in a lot of YA, I feel like the romance is sort of in there just because they feel like it's mandatory or there has to be romance. So yeah, and I'm not a huge romance fan if it's in a book and it's well done and I'm like, oh, that's so nice, but I'm definitely not a romance person.
Right. Well, I think this book, it was great not to have that part of it. For me anyway, that was the way I really liked it. So your name is an absolutely incredible name, Demitria Lunetta, and I think it's just a fabulous name, especially for a writer. Have you gotten comments about?
I've gotten lots of comments. People ask me if it's my real name all the time. It is. It's funny when I actually wondered when I got my book deal if they were going to make me change it to something like normal, or like do initials like DL somebody or something. Yeah,
right.
But no, my first name is Greek and my last name is Italian.
Yeah,
so,
it's a beautiful name.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a beautiful name. So I heard your survival that you like books and chocolate.
Yes.
I think that's an excellent choice. Yeah, just always have those two things on hand that you can survive anything, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's great. So I want to know, you know, with so many YA authors especially, the social networking that you do, not only with your readers, but with other writers, do you find it to be time-consuming, or is it one of those things that just connects you better to knowing what readers are reading out there and what they're really enjoying?
It's kind of funny because when I first got my book deal, they wanted me to join Twitter, and I was like, oh, why do I have to do another social media thing? But I actually really like Twitter. Facebook too, I feel like at first it seems daunting because you feel like you're going to be on there all the time, but then after a while it's sort of your escape. Like if you're like, I'm stuck on the scene, I'm going to go on Twitter and go on the computer for a while. And there's so many things out there that I'm not even on, like Tumblr and stuff like that.
But it could be a huge time.
It is. It is a time suck, but at the same time, it's. I feel like it's good to connect with people, and you also can follow other authors, obviously, and find out what they're doing, and it definitely, I think social media is a good thing.
Well, and I think, too, the whole community of YA authors is such a giving and sharing community. And I know you're in a group, the 2K13, because a lot of you were debut authors last year. And I think it's just such a great community because I think there's such support, unlike there is for a lot of adult writers. But I think young adult authors are so communicative with each other and supportive that it's huge.
It is. It's really amazing. I'm glad I joined that group. There's another group called the Lucky 13s, which is even bigger. It has, I think, 120 members.
Wow.
Of people who debuted in 2013, like I did, and we still all talk, and we still all, you know, we have our online, you know, comments and stuff, and it's really good because you get to know about books that are coming out from other authors. You get to know about all these things that are going on, and it's definitely helped me keep my sanity in my debut year for sure. Listening to what everyone else was going through, the same things as me, but
no, that's good. That's fantastic.
Great.
So, what is your earliest recollection of wanting to be a writer?
Oh, when I was very young, as soon as I could read, I knew I wanted to write. I just loved to read so much. It was also kind of, I didn't think I could actually be an author. It's sort of this magical thing that, you know, books were made by fairies or something. I don't know. But I knew that there were authors and I knew that there were books. It was just like, seemed so far-fetched that I would ever become an author. But I definitely, very, very young, I knew that I wanted to write. It wasn't until after college that I was like, I could actually be a writer.
And you know, I've not talked to a single author who has said that they were not a voracious reader. I think that's just a given, you know. So tell us what you're working on now, because I think you have another book coming out this fall.
Well, it's not. I have some stuff out with. So when you when you publish a book. And if you have it published, you usually don't have to write the full book. You write something called a partial,
Right.
So, and then you write a summary of the book. So I have those out right now.
Oh, okay. So when do you think we'll see the next thing? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
I'm not sure. Well, I have one that's a YA thriller. So yes, I'm not sure what's going to happen with it yet. So I can't say too much.
We can't wait.
Yes.
We can't wait. So I end these interviews with a little quiz. So no pressure.
Okay.
You know the answer. So. This is a lightning round, so whatever comes to you first. These are all sort of a reading sort of quiz. So you know the answers. So no pressure. What was your favorite book when you were young?
I think my favorite books were the Chronicles of Narnia books because there were 7 of them, and I could just read one each day and then start over, and I loved them. I've read those books 100 times.
And how about something in high school? Something that still stayed with you?
Let's see. In high school. I'm trying to think of all the books I read in high school. Mostly in high school, I read for school. I think a lot of high schoolers do. And I'm trying to think of any of the books that I read in high school that I absolutely loved. I feel like for myself, I read a lot of Stephen King books in high school.
Well, that makes sense. That's great. That's great. Okay, what about in college? Anything when you were in college?
I definitely remember reading. I took a children's lit class, and I read The Perks of Being a Wallflower. That one definitely stuck out. Yeah, for me.
Fantastic. And have you ever faked reading a book?
Yes. I've never read Jane Eyre, but I've had conversations about it because I've seen the movie.
All right.
All of the movies
You're not
that
the first person to say that. All right. Have you ever read a book for its cover?
Yes, definitely.
Or a cover you really liked?
The Grave Mercy books. I really like historical fiction covers. They're really usually beautiful.
Yeah, those have great covers, that whole series. That's great covers. Okay, how about a book you've been an evangelist for? You could not tell enough people they had to read it.
I recently read a book by Elizabeth Fama called Monstrous Beauty. Oh, that book is so good. Everyone should definitely read that book. That's a recent one,
That's a great one. And what would you call a guilty pleasure read? Or it could be any magazine or anything.
I would go back to historical fiction, but the like sort of really juicy, like sort of kind of trashy historical fiction about like.
It's not guilty. Okay. That's good. Good choice. Okay. And other favorite YA authors? Some of your favorites you read?
Ooh, definitely. There's too many.
I know there's too many, but something that just pops into your head.
Again, Elizabeth Fama. Joelle Charbonneau, I just read all of her books. She's awesome.
Okay.
Mindy McGinnis, who wrote Not a Drop to Drink, and Kate Carries Quinn. She wrote another little piece. Those ones are a few.
And what is your favorite horror film?
Another hard one. I definitely the Alien movies. I think I would have to go with.
Can you believe it's an anniversary coming up for that film? I forget how many years it's like.
It would have to be over 30.
It's over 30 years.
Like
I think it's 30 years.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And what are you reading now? Something you're enjoying?
I'm reading, actually I'm reading The City of Spark. No, The City of Spark. No, The City of Ember. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Which I haven't read. And I know it's from about 10 years ago.
I know,
but
those are great.
Have to.
The movie was not good. Don't,
don't watch the movie.
Always read the book first. But those are good ones. Yeah. Well, congratulations. You got 100%. Okay. Demitria, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me, and congratulations on the conclusion with In the End. And thanks for talking with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Great conversation about one of our own local authors. It's Demitria Lunetta. Wonderful science fiction, but it's post-apocalyptic. You've got to read it. It's called In the End. Thanks for joining me on Authors Revealed.